Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras.
And I'm Natasha Kircha. Coming up in today's newscast, Israeli officials speak out about the murder of ISIS chief Abu Baker Al-Baghdadi.
Will Israel be able to use sunlight to power the entire country?
And we'll reveal if Starbucks and Shake Shack are really coming to Israel. It's official. The leader of the Islamic State terror group Abu Baker Al-Baghdadi is officially dead following a nighttime U.S. raid in northwest Syria over the weekend. And according to President Trump, U.S. forces killed a large number of Islamic State fighters during the raid, in which Baghdadi was reportedly cornered before setting off an explosive suicide vest.
Well, in the hours since the announcement, Israeli officials are now congratulating President Trump, calling the raid an important milestone in the fight against terrorism.
I want to congratulate President Trump on the impressive achievement, an operation that led to the death of the Daesh leader, al-Baghdadi. This reflects the united resolve of the free countries led by the United States to fight the forces of terror, the terror organizations and the terrorist states. This is an important milestone, but it's part of a longer battle which we must win.
Likewise, Kachol Lavan leader and former IDF chief of staff Benny Gantz said that the fight against terror requires a mix of responsibility, patience, and determination to act, and the elimination of the Daesh leader in Syria is a combination of all three, adding that this is an important accomplishment that brings justice to the cruel deaths of hundreds of thousands of people under al-Baghdadi's orders.
All the security heads in Israel also agree, though, that even with al-Baghdadi gone, the fight against ISIS and Islamic terrorism in the region is very far from over.
Now, as the sun sets on Sunday in the evening hours over Tel Aviv, Prime Minister Netanyahu and rival Benny Gantz of the Kachol Lavan party sat down to discuss the potential of a centrist unity government.
And this sit-down at the IDF headquarters is the first official meeting between the two party chiefs since Gantz received the second mandate to form a coalition.
But despite promising to sit down again in the near future, neither side reported any progress. Netanyahu continues to refuse to budge on his 55-seat right-wing bloc, and his Likud negotiating teams have likewise refused any repeated proposals by the president. President Rivlin's compromise agreement would have seen power shared equally between Netanyahu and Gantz, who would swap the premiership position every 2 years. It would also have potentially allowed Netanyahu to defer any legal probes and indictments as, quote, interim prime minister. In any case, regardless of this setback, Gantz later reported that he will still continue with all efforts to form a unity government and prevent third elections, while Netanyahu continues to push for his so-called broad unity government, which includes his right and religious factions, for the sake of, quote, security.
ואנחנו צריכים להחליט החלטות קשות שמחייבות ממשלה עם כתפיים רחבות. לכן החשיבות ביצירת ממשלת אחדות לאומית רחבה זו לא שאלה פוליטית, זו שאלה לאומית, זו שאלה ביטחונית ראשונה במעלה. ואני מקווה שנוכל לקדם את היעד הזה בימים הקרובים.
Well, it looks like Argentina has a new president. Alberto Fernandez has just won the Argentinian election, and former Argentine leader Cristina Fernandez will also be serving as his vice president. Here to break down what this means for Israel and the Jewish community is ILTV's Shanna Fold. Hello, Shanna.
Hi. So this is huge news for Argentinians, and people were really celebrating for those who voted for him. He had upwards of 45% of the vote, which was exactly what he needed to win this election. He needed to break through the 45% barrier, which is exactly what he did. The exact number is 48% of the votes. Now, Fernandez is 60 years old. He's a leftist. And he beat out the incumbent. His name was Macri, and Macri was pro-market, pro-capitalism. He hoped to revitalize the government in Argentina, which, if you paid attention at all in the last 10 years, you know that Argentina had a huge inflation issue. Yeah. So now
they've been dealing with a serious economic crisis. But let's talk a little bit about the implications of this for the Jewish community and, of course, Israel, because We can say that they weren't big fans of Cristina Kirchner, who formerly led the country and is now going to be the vice president.
Right. So now the important thing to note is that Kirchner comes in here as the VP. Now she's coming back after having served twice as president in Argentina. And this is a big deal for Jews. Why? Because in 1994, there was an enormous bombing of a community center in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, the capital. Yes, AMIA Jewish Center. And 85 people died and hundreds of people were hurt. Now, this is a case that has left a long legacy and has really irked the people of Israel and the Jewish people till today. So in court proceedings after that, the VP, Cristina, she basically allowed the perpetrators to be tried in Iran. So this was a terrorist bombing via Hezbollah, and they were allowed to be tried in Iran. So some people saw this as a cop-out, that she might have been colluding with Iran in order to help these people get off the hook. Other people said that she wanted to make this into an international story. So it depends on who you ask from the Jewish community, whether or not they're in favor of her.
And of course, there was a case with prosecutor Alberto Nisman, who was found dead just a day before he was going to testify against Kirchner regarding this bombing. So, I mean, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out in terms of Israeli-Argentinian relations, especially given that I think Prime Minister Netanyahu visited Argentina for the first time in an official visit in 2017.
Yes, so President Macri hosted for the first time the Prime Minister of Israel. That had never happened before. And what you were just saying about Alberto Nisman, this happened when he was killed or a suicide. It's unclear which one it was. It was 2015, which was only 4 years ago, and this bombing happened in 1994. So it just goes to show you how long this process has taken and how important it is.
And the impact that it's had on the Jewish community until now. Thank you so much.
Not forgotten, Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Shayna. All right. Now, Israelis love talking weddings, right, Aaron? How many times have you been asked about your relationship status?
Honestly, I recently got married, so hopefully I'll be stopped getting that question, from getting that question. But Well,
Israelis certainly are not going to stop talking about marriage anytime soon, especially since more and more young locals are speaking out against what it takes to get married in the state of Israel. Take a look.
Go into the chapel and we're gonna get married. Go into the chapel and we're gonna get married.
Getting engaged is the easy part, but getting married in Israel isn't so simple for everybody.
We got married about a year ago in September 2000. Not a year ago, 2 years ago. Oopsie, sorry.
Israel is a democratic state, but the government enforces religious law on marriage and divorce. Today, any Jew living in Israel who wants to get married has to do so through the Orthodox-run chief rabbinate. To get married through the rabbinate, you have to prove that you're Jewish, have an Orthodox rabbi officiate your nuptials, and make sure the wedding itself aligns with the practices of Orthodox Judaism. Meaning, even if you aren't Orthodox or religious, you're required to abide by Orthodox rules. But a third of the Israeli couples that got married in 2018 didn't do it through the rabbinate. Many say it's because they were putting up a fight.
We're both recognized as Jews in Israel. There's no problem. It was a choice.
A small act of protest.
The idea that in this country you can only get married through a religious body is kind of off-putting.
The message of the rabbinate is that there's only one way, and if you don't do it our way, then you're not really Jewish.
But not all couples are choosing to avoid the rabbinate because of ideological reasons. Some just really don't have the option. An estimated 1 in 10 marriages are mixed.
I'm from Germany.
I'm from Israel.
And we're getting married.
If you're in a mixed religion marriage or aren't considered Jewish according to the state, you can't legally get married in the state of Israel to another Jewish person.
We knew that there will be consequences of the fact that Charlotte is not Jewish and we cannot get married in a religious way.
Charlotte began to try to convert to Judaism to be able to get married by the rabbinate in Israel.
You have to apply to under the Prime Minister's office, and then, like a state affair, you apply and to submit letters of recommendation.
Today, there is an option for couples who don't want to get married through the rabbinate. They can get married abroad and then come back to Israel and register their civil marriage with the government.
I tried to convert for almost a year now. It's been since October. And it's just not possible. So we had to go to Cyprus.
But now there's a whole new alternative in Israel, domestic union cards.
It's a new status relationship which give you same rights as married couple. You are able to get fertility treatments, mortgage, tax benefits, pension, social security benefits. We gave the power back to the people.
Statistics show that 68% of the Israeli Jewish public favors a law that would allow freedom of choice in marriage. But for some, doing so would rid Israel of its Jewish identity.
מי שמדבר על מציאות של שינוי, הוא לא חשב במידה מספקת, אבל זה חוסר אחריות משווע לגבי קיומו ועתידו של עם ישראל.
In Israel, marriage has become more than just a union. It's become a question of freedom of choice and a window into the identity struggles the country faces when it comes to separating state and religion.
Moving on, is it possible that in just 10 years' time, Israel could be powering itself on energy from the sun alone?
Well, the answer may surprise you. It may sound impossible, but by 2030, Israel is expected to be completely powered by solar energy during the daytime hours. Two renewable energy groups have teamed up to make sure that 100% of the daytime energy used in the Holy Land comes from just the sun. And solar panels are being set up on rooftops, military bases, and commercial centers throughout the Arava region of southern Israel, where Israel has the most direct sunshine all throughout the year. But what about the spots around the country that get less solar power? Well, the energy will be run up to the north using individual grids that connect to a uniform post. Best of all, solar fields are independent and won't disrupt energy across the country if just one of the fields are hit during times of war or by terrorist activity. And this could be good financial news for locals as well. Solar power is less costly than natural gas at about just 6 cents per kilowatt. That's a third of the price of natural gas. Right now, 95% of Israel's electricity is powered by fossil fuels, which are bad for the environment and public health. But energy providers aren't the only private companies looking to make a sustainable change that's positive for the earth. World-renowned home retail store IKEA is nearing the date it's set to remove all one-time use plasticware from its inventory. Starting in early 2020, IKEA will no longer offer plastic spoons and forks at its in-store eateries. Plastic bags are also going to be replaced with alternative materials, and straws will be converted into recyclable paper ones. What's more, well, the plastic materials used to make some of their flagship sellers like curtains or kitchenware will be swapped out for more recyclable materials that will save the environment from irreparable damage.
Now, it may not be talked about as often as it once was, but HIV and AIDS are still very much a real danger.
Well, here in Israel, the Ministry of Health is now looking to combat the disease's spread, and joining us with the details is attorney Chen Shamilo, the General Director of the Israel AIDS Task Force. So our first question for you is, what is PrEP? It is a new treatment that is now going to be available to the Israeli public, correct?
Right, so it's not that new because we have PrEP in the world since 2012, and PrEP, thanks to the Israel AIDS Task Force and the Medical Association activities in Israel since 2017. PrEP is basically a pill taken either daily or on demand by HIV-negative people to lower the risk of getting HIV.
So why is it only now kind of being discussed and being brought up as part of the health package?
PrEP is accessible in Israel only through the add-on insurances, the complementary insurances. And so only people who have these insurances can afford, and it's still in a high cost of about $100 a month.
Wow.
And so we requested the scientific committee of the Israeli Basic Health Basket to include this treatment into the basic health basket. And this is the third year, actually, that the committee has been discussing this issue. This time, as we heard yesterday, we were lucky to hear some of the objections to this request.
Now, why was there such a controversy over this drug?
Well, PrEP is a very unique issue where you have to understand the culture and the sexual health behavior of specific groups at risk in order to fully understand its importance and its impact on the specific communities that we're dealing with. And so I guess the some of the committee members were knowledgeable enough about how you implement PrEP and get to a better results or better lower rates in Israel in terms of HIV.
Do you know what the rates are right now?
So Israel is considered a relatively low rate country, but in the past 2 years we've witnessed an increase in newly diagnosed cases. Some of them in specific groups at risk, of course, but also in just the general population.
Why is that the case?
And so there are like various trends in public health. We're looking into them right now, and the figures are not, complete yet.
Are people ignorant of the dangers?
Some people are indifferent about the risk. Young generation is a little bit fearless sometimes about risks of getting HIV or sexual behavior in general.
Which is maybe because we also don't hear about it in the news as often.
And
right?
also it is mistakenly, I think, perceived as kind of a non-issue. It's not a big public health concern anymore, even though it should be, because it's still HIV/AIDS, it's still a life-threatening situation.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are probably thinking right now, why is a condom not enough?
Well, first, condom is very important, and we still advocate and educate people about using condoms. PrEP is an additional tool, a very effective one, evidence-based strategy to get to lower rates and even to get to the ultimate goal, which is getting to 0 new infections within 2 years. That's a goal that we at the Israeli AIDS Task Force are now pioneering. We're pioneering the call upon the government to set the goals there. And so if we want to get there, PrEP must be included in the basic health basket because it's proven as a very effective tool in addition to condoms. Now, some people that are at high risk, and I would say even the highest risk people, are either reluctant or incapable of using condoms in a routine manner. And so they definitely need this component of PrEP to be more accessible for them.
So, one of the issues, the government is currently facing a major budget issue, especially when it comes to the Ministry of Health. Are you sure that this drug is going to be able to get into the medical service basket?
I must say that I can't be very much optimistic about it because of the financial barrier that you just mentioned. But I would say that since it's the 3rd year in a row that we've been requesting the committee to include PrEP, if this year it won't work, we will demand directly from the Ministry of Health to fund PrEP through other channels that they have. So we are not quitting. We definitely have to push forward. So PrEP will be available, for example, soldiers. They don't have PrEP in the military basket now. People are uninsured. People are just can't afford paying, about $100 US a month to be safe and not getting HIV.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Chen. Thank you.
Important issue. All right. Now, this is a crazy story. Usually when someone puts their John Hancock on a document, that's the final line, especially after death. But that's not the case today.
No, a woman in North Israel has just won a precedent-setting case allowing her the use of frozen sperm, the sperm of her late brother, actually, in order to continue the family line. The problem is that he didn't want that to happen. 8 years ago, the man in question, hereafter referred to as X, was diagnosed with an intense form of cancer. X hasn't yet been named in the public, but according to his family, in a frenzy, he signed off on a form that would destroy the sperm he had frozen out of standard practice. X's sister, though, who has since discovered she's infertile, petitioned the hospital to keep the sperm, bringing forward evidence that the man had not been in a clear state of mind when he signed the original paperwork. Also, the family hopes to have a surrogate mother carry out the pregnancy. But whatever the case, the family says that one of X's greatest wishes was to bring children into the world himself. So they are all eager to get started making that process finally come true.
It's just such a crazy story, but I don't know. There are a lot of moral questions there, we could say.
There's a lot of ambiguity. There's certainly an argument on both sides. It's who's to say what this deceased man really wanted for himself, whether or not he really was in the right frame of mind when he signed whatever he signed.
Well, it looks like the family got what they wanted at the end of the day, so we'll move on. All right, now something that Israelis really take pride in is the coffee that they drink, and it may or not be the best in the world here in Israel, but we do have standards for what we want, and that's why the American chain Starbucks actually has had so much trouble opening up here. But rumor now has it that the coffee company is again in talks to try its hand in the Holy Land, and ILTV's Nittany Benson is very excited about this story.
I am very excited. You don't understand. My life without Starbucks has been very difficult.
Oh, Israelis are going to fight you on that.
You need your caffeine
They
fix.
will. But yeah, so they were here back in between 2001 and 2003, and it just didn't stick. Israelis didn't like it. There's a lot of different reasons as to why. Some people say because the to-go cups.
Flavor?
It was not the burnt flavor, Aaron. It was the to-go cups. The Israelis really like to go to a cafe, sit down, have a cup of coffee, and the fact that it was automatically given in a to-go cup kind of infuriated some people.
That's interesting that would be the problem.
Especially in Israel, where
everyone's
Israelis
rushing all the time.
to-go cups for
But
everything.
that was a big major issue, and also the prices. Starbucks coffees are very pricey, and one of the things that you're paying for when you go to Starbucks is the Starbucks experience.
Right.
Well, Israelis are like, well, I don't want to pay extra money because you write
Because
my
it's
name on the
brand,
cup.
right.
What has changed now, though? Why does Starbucks suddenly think they have an opening here?
The rising number of tourists in Israel is a really big factor because a lot of people are here that would want Starbucks that they're used to back home. There's also a rising number of North Americans who live here who also are used to Starbucks.
They're jonesing.
They
like
are
yourself.
jonesing for their coffee like
It's
me.
just so funny because every time I'm in the United States with an Israeli, they complain about the coffee to no end. They're like, this Starbucks crap.
Exactly.
So it will be interesting to see how that plays out here. No, I'm not saying that. I like a good Starbucks coffee. But we understand this isn't the only other business that's opening.
It isn't. There's talks now that also Shake Shack, which is another burger joint, burgers and hot dogs. So they're also in talks to maybe open up some Israeli branches, which could be fun. A lot of other places have.
What's the situation with kashrut though? Because I understand, like, they may or may not be kosher once they get here.
Right now, they're not. There's no final answer on a word on what that will be, but. Right now, they're not kosher.
Well, there are a lot of businesses here that are not kosher. They don't serve kosher.
No, there's nothing wrong with not being kosher.
I mean,
but,
I feel
like McDonald's, for example, made that changeover, which I think has been part of why they're still around here.
Well, there are branches that are kosher and those that aren't, so maybe.
Well, it will be interesting to see if they're actually able to survive here because there are obviously chains here, hamburger chains here that people
We'll find out.
We'll
find out.
Wow. All right, Nittany, bringing all the American brands to Israel.
We're crossing our fingers for you. Thank you, Nittany.
My pleasure.
All right, now don't try this one at home, folks. Over the weekend, a brawl broke out in front of a small convenience store in the Israeli city of Bat Yam on Saturday night, but no one could have predicted what the police would eventually find when they arrived at the scene of the crime.
Yeah, because as it turns out, the brawl the police were actually called about was in fact a robbery where the store's employees and even customers were, in short, taking care of business.
Well, let's look at this. Wait, let's look at the security camera. Okay, what is happening
I mean,
here?
this footage is crazy. Basically, what we're going to see is this robber who is wearing, his identity's concealed. He's wearing a motorcycle helmet. Right now, the customers are actually attacking him outside the store after his first attempt at robbing the register. Now what we're seeing right now is after his second attempt, and what he's holding right there is the register itself. He decided
to just went in and he grabbed the register.
Yeah, he ran back in, he grabbed the register, the whole thing.
And he jumped on a motorcycle.
And again, we're seeing like some straight up Bruce Lee, attacks on this guy. The employees, the customers, bystanders, everyone is just doing everything possible to keep this guy from going
throwing bottles at him.
anywhere.
I heard they were throwing chips at him. This guy's apparently 25 years old, but he was armed apparently as well.
He was armed. He had a gun.
Scared.
He had a pistol. So that was the craziest thing about this too, is that they delayed him enough that when the police finally got there, he had escaped already, but they delayed him that they could catch up to him and arrest him. Just totally fearless against this guy with a gun.
I mean, this is so Israeli. Honestly, everybody is a hero, right? Everybody is a hero, and they went after him.
They really,
Look at that footage.
They really did.
I mean, I would throw cans too.
Would you?
Yeah, this flying, flying kick that comes out of nowhere.
I would actually be hiding.
I'd be hiding behind the Starbucks down the corner.
Well,
Clearly.
yeah, right. Well, the thing is, I don't know if I would get that involved, but in Israel, people won't let this.
I love it.
They won't let this fly.
All right. Well, I wouldn't suggest that anybody go after an armed robber if it's just money. Just give the money, but still.
All the respect to these pedestrians. All right. Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight you can expect partly cloudy skies and a low of 57 or 14 degrees Celsius in Jerusalem. The high does go up a bit to around 65 or 18 degrees Celsius in the rest of the country. And then tomorrow, you can expect more partly cloudy skies and scattered rains. And the high will sit at about 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 degrees Celsius everywhere, except for Eilat, where the high will be at 88 or 31 degrees Celsius.
All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.54 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. I'm Aaron Porras.
And I'm Natasha Kirchuk. Thanks so much for watching.